Instead of stepping down and doing the honorable thing, Michael Ma is heading to China. He wanted that special access. Now he gets to meet Xi Jinping in China with Mark Carney. And he's going to be part of top secret negotiations for 4 days in a row. I thought China was the biggest risk to Canada right now. At least that's what Mark Carney said. And Mark Carney, he told us back in November that our economy was absolutely booming right now. Wages are growing way faster than inflation. Unemployment rate is down. We're all getting rich. Well, we got some new economic data that just came out today. When Mark Carney said that we're booming, maybe what he meant is our economy is about to go boom. Let's get into this report. You know one thing I love about the internet? It lives forever. I put together Mark Carney on China in 2025. Let's take a look.
During your meeting with President Xi, neither Canada's readout or China's made mention of you bringing up things such as Uyghur detention camps or the transnational repression in Canada or Beijing's foreign interference into Canadian elections. Did you bring these issues up?
We had a discussion on foreign interference.
How did he react when you mentioned foreign interference into Canadian
Look,
elections?
we had, we had a discussion that was, our overall discussion was constructive, and it was number one, constructive. Number two, marked a turning point in the relationship. It's important that we are engaged with the world's largest country by population, second largest economy by value, and increasingly influential. So we need to be back in there, and now we are back in having those discussions. I think internationally, I think the biggest security threat to China, Canada is China.
China, you say?
Yeah.
Hi, Prime Minister. Sarah Ritchie with the Canadian Press. If you cast your mind back to April during the election campaign, I know it feels like a long time ago for me, you told Canadians that China was the biggest security threat to this country and to Canadians. Do you still believe that to be the case?
You know, one of the advantages of having your security clearance is you're better informed about some of the threats, and I highly recommend that anyone either in the position of responsibility or seeking it has their security clearance. So I have a richer sense of the tapestries of threats that face our country. And I'll choose my words carefully, given that I'm briefed on these matters and have my security clearance and do that. It is one of the largest threats to, with respect to foreign interference, which we have to counter, and we are countering. It is a partner, more than that, with Russia, and is supporting them in its unjustified invasion, illegal invasion of Ukraine. It is a threat within broader Asia and to Taiwan, and so we both have to engage with China, take steps to protect ourselves here, take steps, for example, which we have done in the last few weeks, steps to protect the Arctic. China is a threat, becoming an emerging threat to the Arctic, which is why we will now have, one of the reasons why we'll now have year-round presence in the Arctic, why we have over the horizon radar struck with Australia, why we have announced that we're going to reinforce our icebreakers and our military capabilities in the Arctic. So, as from a geopolitical sense, the biggest threat, we're taking action.
From my understanding, you know, some of the campaign was pushing positive narratives about you. Why do you think that China, the PRC, seems to like you? Why are they praising you?
I have absolutely no idea, and I have absolutely no idea, and I think well, I'll leave it at that.
Don't you think it's funny that on this channel, just my last video, I was making fun saying, oh, wouldn't it be funny if Michael Ma was invited to go to China? It went from a joke to an official announcement. You're not going to believe this. Michael Ma defected from the Conservative Party, and he's a backbencher, way out back, but he's acting as if he's the right-wing man for Mark Carney, and he's heading to China. Let's see what you are all saying about this announcement. It's unbelievable. Wasted Canadian says, this is insane. Loyalties were misplaced, obviously. WTF, I have 0 words, says Keith. G-Man says, one of the real Chinese assets. It's unbelievable, isn't it? And Grandma Bear 4 says, they aren't even trying to hide foreign agents inside the Liberal government anymore. How bad is that? It's unbelievable because it's unexplainable that a guy that was working for the Conservatives, he's not trustworthy whatsoever, how he could just flip overnight and then go over to the Liberals. And now he's getting a prime first-class seat to China. Honestly, I'm speechless. To be honest, we shouldn't be surprised at all because these 9 current and former Liberal ministers were singled out as compromised in an open letter by 2 RCMP officers. So are we surprised? We currently have 9 people that are in our government that are compromised. You know, it's pretty amazing that many Canadians do not have a problem with Mark Carney heading to China. Why does China get a free pass? I mean, we have all the evidence that they've been doing things totally against Canada, including the 100% tariff on our canola and our farmers. Has the Orange Man bad completely given Canadians brain fog to the point where their judgment has flown completely out the window? Former diplomat Michael Kovrig warns PM Mark Carney that Beijing might use his upcoming visit to drive a wedge between Canada and the United States while seeking expanded market access. CTV News. I actually have a clip from November that he was on CTV warning Mark Carney and this government. This could end badly for Canada if we don't do it right.
Do you foresee any world in which China stops those kinds of practices? And I ask you because we're now facing a situation where there are many people in this country who are writing op-eds and advocating for turning directly to China in a commensurate fashion, in a commensurate way to the degree that we turn away from the U.S.
Right. I would strongly avoid that framework, frankly. Diversification is, I think that's really the bedrock of Mark Carney's economic strategy as far as increasing Canada's resilience and reducing dependencies. We do want to reduce the extreme dependency we have on the U.S. market, but let's face it, it's always going to be there to some extent. We can just try to mitigate it. And he seems to have a 10-year plan to try to do that, and I think that's realistic. Making China the core of that strategy, not a good idea because it's not geopolitically a reliable partner, and as it's demonstrated time and again, if you create dependency on China, it will weaponize it for political purposes and to silence Canada and constrain our foreign policy. So what you need instead is diversification across multiple partners. If you increase trade to China, but at the same time you increase trade with Indonesia, with India, with Japan, with Europe, and that balances out, as long as you make sure that China doesn't have too much leverage over any one Canadian company or sector, that can be part of a strategy, but it's got to be managed holistically that way. I think just turning and deepening relations with China, they will weaponize that and use that against us to constrain our own foreign policy freedom, and that would be very dangerous. And frankly, what we need to realize, if we want to be realistic about it, we need not just short-term pragmatism, but a long-term vision of principled realism to protect the country's interests and values. The United States will react negatively if we are perceived as tilting too rapidly toward China, and there would be costs to that. So this all needs to be balanced.
I will keep everybody up to date with China. Let's move on to the next news item. As Ryan Garrickson here says on X, it's probably just a coincidence that Qatar and Brookfield recently announced $20 billion investment partnership, and Carney's heading there in the coming weeks. Just a coincidence, I am sure. Here's the announcement. It was made exactly 1 month ago. So I'm sure he's just going there to get an update on the Brookfield investments. And this is the elbows up voters once they saw that he was going to Qatar. Let's just shove our head right into the sand. I never in my life thought I would be reporting on something like this. The Canadian government euthanized a young and healthy 26-year-old for, get this, depression. That's right. Vancouver, Canada, Canadian-made program euthanized a 26-year-old for depression and diabetes. Mental illness alone isn't supposed to qualify until 2027. And I cannot believe that you would be able to qualify for something that I believe is a curable disease. Depression is curable, in my opinion. Usually you need nutrition. Just look at Andrew Lawton for the Conservatives. He was close to the end, but he turned his life around, and now he's a sitting MP fighting every single day to stop this madness. The story goes on that they found a loophole, and they were able to move ahead. And there's 400 plus other cases like this. The mother of this very young adult tried to save him before. He tried to do this 4 years ago, and they said no. But for some reason, 4 years later, he was successful, and she cannot believe that they actually approved this. How low do we have to go for this Liberal government to actually go after Canada's most vulnerable people and offered them this program? How long will Canadians actually sit there and tolerate this type of evil? Here's another photo of this young gentleman. March 14th, 1999, he was born. He was terminated on December 30th of 2025. Look how young this man is. And what I can't believe is December 30th of 2025, I got injured a year ago. I broke my hand. I went to the hospital on December 28th, and there wasn't a CAS person at the hospital servicing 350,000 people. They said there's only one CAS person that works in the hospital throughout the year, and he has built up after 25 years of service, like 2 months or more holidays per year. So they told me I couldn't get a cast until he came back from holidays in the new year, like January 6th. So how is there somebody working and being able to administer this thing on December 30th? It's like as if they're fully stocked 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to do this to our youth. Japan's new prime minister is completely based. She has come out and said all meals non-halal on Japan Airlines. You want halal? You're not going to get it in Japan. Meanwhile, in Canada, we're spending millions. You're not going to believe this. Here it is. They're going to be spending $2.26 million on a halal meat processing plant in PEI, using our tax dollars on this. Why are the Canadian taxpayers subsidizing something like this? While Japan is banning it on their planes, Canada is spending an atrocious amount of money on this. Check out this statistic. Countries with the most arrests for online comments. As little as somebody posting a meme, which might have offended somebody, the United Kingdom has arrested over 12,000 people. And just so people are aware, the UK is just a couple of years more advanced than Canada. If they pass any of these bills, specifically Bill C9, oh yeah, we're going to be right up there with the UK. Danielle Smith met with Mark Carney and says, we had a positive meeting, she says, with Prime Minister Mark Carney, during which we discussed events in Venezuela and how it underscores the necessity to greatly expedite the approval of 1 million barrels per day of oil to Canada's Pacific coast, as well as the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline. So she wrote a letter to the Prime Minister. She wrote and said that they're going to be submitting by June and wants approval right away. And the latest that she's going to be putting for approval for this pipeline is in the fall. Let's see if Mark Carney is a man of his word and gonna get this thing approved. But Mark Carney also posted about the meeting with Danielle Smith. Great to catch up with Premier Danielle Smith today to talk about big things built for Albertans and all of Canadians. We focus on building new trading partnerships, fast-tracking major projects, and making Canada an energy superpower in a rapidly changing global landscape. Not once did he mention pipelines. Does this not concern everybody? He went there and had a meeting with Danielle Smith, and they didn't talk about pipelines based on his post. Check out Ezra Levant from Rebel News. He says, this is very interesting. Mark Carney and the Liberals absolutely despise Alberta, and they also do not like oil and gas workers, but they love communist China. If China wants oil, Carney might just let Brookfield build them a pipeline. And here's the Bloomberg Post. It says China's refiners, all but cut off from Venezuelan crude in the past week, are looking for a pricier alternative source in Canada, Bloomberg. Wouldn't that be something? They're going to China and they're going to be offering China some of our oil and gas. Hopefully that is the case. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker is officially finished. She has resigned. Chrystia Freeland is gone. What will Chrystia Freeland be known for? I will go first, but I want to hear from you in the comments section. She will be known for freezing Canadian bank accounts and then telling us that if we cut our Disney Plus, we're going to be able to make ends meet all of a sudden. And she cut her Disney Plus with her $500,000 salary, and that is why her family is able to turn on the heat at wintertime. I'd love to see what some of you have said in the comment sections. Twitchy and Mr. Speaker, the Ukraine laundromat. And Mark Smith here says many, many bad things in between. It looks like she ate her constituents. That is insane. Donald Trump just announced, the Americans just keep on winning. Donald Trump just came out and said he's going to cap interest rates at 10% for credit cards. This is a massive win for Americans. Wouldn't it be nice if in Canada we were offered a bone just once in a while, reduce our credit cards to 10%, or actually did something where our life actually got a little bit more affordable? We just have to look down south and start clapping for them, because here in Canada, we don't get this type of relief. I think everybody needs to hear this because I completely agree with him.
If we continue to accept scandals, fraud, mediocrity, all that stuff, that's what we will get. If we accept it, we get it. We must fight back against fraud, scandals, waste, corruption. Like, we were brought to our knees. Like, you can't tell me, these people, are they okay with half of Canadians basically at the begging bowl now? They can't even cover their monthly expenses. Is that okay in one of the richest resource nations in the world? Is that okay? Is that okay? That's what we're supposed to accept, as long as the elitists are doing well. And the CBC gets $1.55 billion to stick their face in the trough. They have disappointed Canadians. They have let Canada down. They do not work for Canadians. They work for the Liberal Party. Not even a government body said that. They are an arm of the government. $1.55 billion.
The evidence of that is, there's plenty of evidence. But look, no further than one of our favourite topics, supply management. That's all about the Liberal Party's electoral prospects. It's not because they have a commitment to kind of like old socialist style planned economy. They don't believe in that. Of course they don't. It's purely because they want to serve themselves. They want power, and they're willing to sacrifice anything and anyone within reason to get that power and keep hold of it, obviously.
Well, the market's on fire ever since the Venezuelan thing, and of course, all the experts, especially the left-leaning media, saying that the markets were going to collapse. So they've said that in Canada, even the mainstream media said that the Donald Trump was going to collapse the economy. Their economy is going up. Ours is continuing to go down. Stock market on fire in the United States. Basically, we won't play all that. But then look at this one, Venezuelan stock market. Ever since Maduro captured, look at that. How do you defend that?
Donald Trump has come out and talked about Greenland again.
We are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, you know, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way. And by the way, I'm a fan of Denmark too. I have to tell you, and you know, they've been very nice to me. I'm a big fan, but you know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also, but we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, and that's what they're going to do if we don't. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
There you have it. He's going to do it the nice way or the difficult way. I wonder how long this is going to take. The Canadian dollar has lost a cent in only 11 days, the worst start of the year in 11 years. And it has a lot to do with Canada's employment data. Canada's unemployment rate is up to 6.8%. Canada lost 73,000 jobs. So it will be to nobody's surprise that Carney's economic record since becoming prime minister, Canada is at negative 1.6 annualized, Canada versus the rest of the G7. And as Kirk Lubanov here says on X, the raw data for Canada's labor force is an absolute disaster over the last month. And check out this chart. The public sector lost 6,000 jobs. I thought we're cutting 10% of our public sector. Well, we're not on track for that. Self-employed down 12,500, and the private sector, what runs our economy and builds wealth for our country, has lost 42,800 jobs. That's it for today's report. I hope everybody out there has a wonderful weekend. God keep our land glorious and free. We need to continue to fight to become the freest and most prosperous country on planet Earth. I will not stop reporting. I'll see you on the next report.